Hi, Democrats. Today is Friday, July 14th, and it's time for the Chair's Daily Live. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. Hi, Dorothy. Okay, so it's Friday. I'm going to give you something to think about over the weekend. So I want to talk a little bit about tax. I want to talk about Oklahoma's school voucher / tax credit scheme. Okay, I keep talking about this, and I keep talking about it because I don't think that people fully understand what's happening, or at least what's happening here in Oklahoma. So it started out as we're going to give every family with an eligible kid a certain amount of money per child that they can use towards paying for private or charter schools. We're going to take the money out of public schools budget and give it to families for so they can send their kids to private schools or charter schools. Okay, I was opposed to that plan back then. I remain opposed to that plan because it presupposes that if you give someone a coupon, which is what I'm calling the voucher, that it will allow them that leg up towards the great equalizer that is education, and all they need is just this little bit of help, and then they can get their kids to go to this private or charter school. One, that's a false premise. And two, let's pretend like it is. What happens to the schools where the money is being taken from? That's always been my big issue, but now I have a new issue. But what happens to those schools? And no shade on those schools, but what they will become are leftover schools. They will become schools that are having to make do with so much less. And they will be judged against the private schools who have all of this extra money, all this extra influence of interest, and they will be judged. And then add on top of that we want to make it better for younger kids to work longer hours. I'm on a soapbox today, but I want to stay focused. So then we shifted it. We being our legislature, I wasn't a part of that. Then we shifted it and we said, you know what? We're not going to just give money away, right? We're not going to just give money away because we don't know if people are going to use it right and blah, blah, blah. So what's going to happen now is you have to pay for everything up front, keep all of your receipts, and file for it on your taxes. And then there's a set amount per child that you will get back on your taxes. And people are like, yay, that means it's not taking money directly out of the schools and blah, 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 blah. What that means is that you have to be able to afford the tuition. You have to be able to afford uniforms and transportation and all the special things that come with private school. And as we just had up, the average price of a private school in Oklahoma, private high school in Oklahoma, is $8,000 a semester. Really? I thought it would be more than that, but okay. So what you have to do is be able to afford that tuition, uniforms, transportation, lunch, all of the things. Okay, that's fine. But what have we done? We've just shifted the conversation and we said we only want private schools for those who can afford it. And that's what they've been saying all along. They've just been saying it kind of in a whisper, and people weren't listening. They are trying to preserve private schools for people who can afford it. Because if you have to pay for it in advance and you have to have the receipts and get a tax credit, that means you had to be able to afford it. And then you get to take the money out. And so over the years, public schools will get worse and worse because their money will be taken and be taken. And let's not forget that private schools don't have to take your kid. They can decide they have enough athletes. They can decide that they don't have the accommodations for disabled kids and they don't want to take disabled kids. They can decide that your kid is the wrong religion or doesn't celebrate that religion appropriately. They don't have to take them, and they can kick your kid out. Now, you've already paid this money. Now you got to wait. You got to wait until tax time to get that money back. Now, why am I talking about this today? Because you've heard me talk about it again. This is a familiar soapbox, has a little divot in it because I've been on it enough. I'm talking about it because of Marlow, Oklahoma. So I'm going to put up a map so you can see where Marlow, Oklahoma is. Okay, so I don't want to talk about it in the abstract. I want you to see where this is. This is in Stevenson County, same county with Duncan, Oklahoma. You see it's down there in the south central part of the state. Okay, Marlow, Oklahoma sent out a letter to students who went there last year, their parents, obviously, that said, if you owe school lunch and you didn't pay your school lunch bill, we won't be able to put your student in a class. So be clear. Students who can't afford lunch. This is a public school. This isn't a private school. This is a public school in Oklahoma. Students who can't afford lunch will not be enrolled in class for this coming school year. What's going to happen to those kids? What's going to happen to those kids? And I know you're saying, what does this have to do with private schools? For me, it's all part of a whole thing. For me, it's all about what are our values. And when I say our values, I'm talking about Oklahoma. Marlow, Oklahoma is in Stevens County. Stevens County in 2020 voted 81.65% for Donald Trump. So the values in this community, 81.65% for Donald Trump. And these are the same people, that whole group of people are all about, we got to protect children. We got to keep them from groomers. We got to, we're Christians. We got to do all this. Yet they're saying, if you can't afford school lunch, your kid can't get educated. So we have communities. Oh, let me tell you, 1/4 of the students at that school, 1/4, 25%, 450 kids at that school have open tabs about school lunch, weren't able to pay for their school lunch. 1/4 of the students weren't able to pay for their school lunch. And they still made a decision. If you can't afford school lunch, your kid can't afford to get educated. What happens to those kids? So we're over here worried about what we're going to do about private schools and who can afford and who can't. I stand my ground when I say the voucher scheme is all about the haves and the have-nots and making it very clear who we value in our society. And it's not the kids, apparently. We are saying if kids who don't have jobs, if their parents can't afford lunch, they can't get educated. This isn't a made-up thing. This isn't something from 1950. This is something from 2023. I don't know if we need to do a GoFundMe to pay those lunches, but it doesn't change the attitudes. I don't know if we need to make sure that they understand that Democrats care and that the bills that our legislators are putting forth are trying to make sure that kids get to eat lunch and that kids are educated and that their schools aren't stripped. Because if the school can't afford to carry this lunch bill and still let kids be in school, what's going to happen when dollars are taken from that school to give to the private school that's inevitably going to pop up? Because they're popping up all over the place because they all want a piece of that voucher pie. Oklahoma, we have to do better. For a community to say, if you don't pay your lunch bill, your kids can't get educated. That says a lot about the culture in that community. And that community is in our state. And it makes me sad to say, but it says something about our state. That community voted 81.65% for Trump. And they are willing to let children go uneducated over a lunch bill. And it may be because that community can't afford that lunch bill, which is another problem that we need to fix. And it's not going to be fixed by taking money out of the public school coffers to give to people who can already afford private school. I know it took the long way around it, but that's what this is about. We're going to take money from kids who can't afford school lunch, from communities that can't afford to carry school lunches. We're going to take money from those schools because it's all part of one big funding formula. We're We're going to take money for those students and give to people who can already afford to send their kids to private schools, all under the name of parent choice. So what this means is that parents who can afford to send their kids to private school and still take the voucher money are choosing to leave some kids uneducated. Let them eat cake. Do better, Oklahoma. It's heartbreaking. I had a whole bunch of other stuff I wanted to talk about. Well, when I found out about this, I felt like I couldn't let it go without talking about it. There are people in our state. Who can afford to send their kids to private schools. And understand, I don't have a problem with private schools. Send your kids to private schools. I don't have a problem with that at all. The private school pop up in my neighborhood, I don't care. Pay for it. But what we have decided as a society in the state of Oklahoma is that we'd rather help pay for rich kids to go to, or financially well-situated kids to go to private school than pay for low wealth students to have lunch. Think about that. But other than that, you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you Monday at 4:15.